This episode of From Angel to Exit is brought to you by Dash. Dash offers remote knowledge workers to streamline workflows for U.S. businesses. Services include CRM management, email organization, social media content, bookkeeping, research, lead generation, and more. Dash professionals save clients time by managing routine tasks, allowing businesses to focus on growth and other high-value activities. For more information, visit hirewithdash.com. Are you serious about planning a successful business exit? From Angel to Exit is your go-to resource. Subscribe to our newsletter at eckfeldt.com/podcast for even more valuable insights. And to get personalized guidance, take our free exit readiness assessment. It's just 24 questions, and it will give you a clear picture of your exit readiness. Find the assessment at eckfeldt.com/exit. Submit your results, and we'll schedule a free follow-up call to discuss your specific situation and the best way to maximize your valuation and ensure a successful transaction. Now, back to the episode. Welcome, everyone. This is From Angel to Exit. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. Our guest today is Matthew Porter. He is currently partner and co-founder at EONOVA, which is a boutique advisory firm. We're going to learn about that. And previously, he was founder and chief executive officer at Contegix, which was a technology company, cloud computing. They did hosted work and Atlassian consulting. We're going to hear about that. And we're going to hear about his story. And he's got a really fascinating business story and a personal story, which we're going to kind of weave into the conversation here. I'm excited for this because I think this is a great conversation about the bigger picture and how these kind of events of founding, growing, scaling, exiting companies kind of fit into kind of the bigger picture of life and the bigger picture of professional growth and where things go, and kind of things you need to think about. And so hopefully people listening to this will get a little perspective, a little insight, and hopefully learn a little bit. So with all that, Matthew, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. This will be fun.
Yeah, it will be. We did a prep call on this earlier. So let's start with kind of the professional side in the business. Give us a little of the backstory on how you got into business. What was your training? How did you start your company? Let's do some of that, and then we'll talk about the story.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand in the story that I grew up in a very modest family, modest household. We had our own financial struggles. My parents both worked for the same company, which was interesting because I also saw them go on strike. I saw my mom have to cross my dad's picket line.
Wow.
It was, yeah. Those are uncomfortable family dinner conversations that night. I just want to be clear. And I gotta respect my mom and dad for what they did and how they did it. I saw that as a kid and thought, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This does not work. My parents were on the mindset of don't ever try to start a business. In fact, when I started Contegix, my grandma asked me what the hell was I doing? Because we don't do that. And the way I looked at it, Bruce, was my parents had a single customer, their employer, and that was risky. And I didn't want that. So despite that, I went to university and I got a degree in computer science and then started my career at, believe it or not, IBM Global Services. Literally across the street from my parents' factory. And I do mean that. It was one stoplight to go into IBM or to go in their factory.
Yeah.
When I switched my major to computer science, my mom said, you'll never make more than $28,000 a year. And on a per hour basis, the day I started at IBM as an intern co-op, I made more per hour than either of my parents.
Yeah. I'm curious with that kind of early childhood experience. I mean, it was that. Did you look at that and say, no, I have to be an entrepreneur? Or I guess how did that impact you? Or what was the kind of thinking through of why you went that path, which seems so kind of contradictory to the values or kind of the ideas that your parents and grandparents had?
So it'll probably sound a little odd. As an entrepreneur, I take risks. As a human being, that was too risky of having a single employer. Yeah. I became very risk averse from that. My parents handled strikes well. They handled that process really well. There were people that they were friends with that were also in the union, and I saw them lose everything. And partially was because they had no preparation for a strike. They were living paycheck to paycheck. I watched one of my dad's friends go and buy a new car and then go put new wheels on the new car. It was a used car, but put new wheels on the car in the midst of a strike. And my dad was like, where the hell are you going?
Yeah.
The like, you don't need a new car to get to the picket line. I'll drive your ass.
Yeah.
And I just saw that as too risky for me.
Yeah.
And I also saw this containment of my time and my parents' time
Hmm.
as something I didn't want.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. I find these early childhood experiences like impact people in all sorts of different ways. And then the series of choices that you make and this whole frame of risk is a fascinating one, right? Like we always talk about risk and kind of early stage ventures, even later stage ventures. And, how people kind of calculate risk and kind of emotionally deal with risk is fascinating. And it sounds like it led you to being highly tolerant of certain types of risks and not tolerant of others. How, I guess, you started as computer science, you got into this world. Like, how did that play out? How did you go from kind of being an employee at IBM to either thinking, I guess, when you started at IBM, do you know you're going to found a company and you were going to get out of there and do something on your own at some point, or how did that thinking play out?
I had what we at the time call now we call side hustles,
Yeah.
but I was doing other stuff. I ended up going to a company based here in St. Louis where, I'm born, raised, educated. I have my own children here now, a company called Worldwide Technology. At the time, it was about 175 employees. I think they're now approaching $20 billion, privately held
Wow.
company based here. And I went there and eventually I left. And I went to a startup. That startup utterly failed. But I knew I wanted that entrepreneur journey.
Mm-hmm.
Something was drawing me to that. And really, maybe it was going back to that risk. I always felt as an entrepreneur, I could control my situation more than if somebody was dictating the control of me by an employer. And hopefully I incorporated that philosophy of letting people have control as I built companies. And I really, truly do hope that I did that.
Yeah.
But I had that startup utterly failed. And I called my boss at Worldwide Technology back. And I'm in my early 20s. And I said to him, I go, I really want to come back. I was in the first year of my marriage. I was in the honeymoon phase. I'd just been laid off. The company owed me $15,000 that I didn't have. Credit cards maxed out. And it wasn't even my company. I was working for two entrepreneurs in a startup.
Yeah.
And my boss at Worldwide said, Matthew, you're a really, really smart kid. And my life would be easier if you came back here, despite you being a pain in the ass. And he said, this is part of the entrepreneur journey you want to be on.
Yeah.
So don't call me back, and hung up the phone on me.
Yeah.
And Bruce, 20 years later, I ran into him and I brought this story up. I may have had a cocktail and felt comfortable enough bringing the story up. And the funny thing is, it's like one of those things where I remember that vividly. I remember where I was in my apartment.
Oh, yeah.
And Bob, my boss at Worldwide's like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Completely forgot about the event.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just had a bad day or something like that, but yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up going to another company, dragged a coworker from Worldwide with me to that other company. And eventually that company that my business partner, Craig, and I were working for was bought out. And we had our side hustle going. And despite him having a daughter that was 9.5 months old, and me having a daughter that was 9 months old, and then a few months, we transitioned that to a full-time gig. And we said, we'll give it a year. We can only afford to pay ourselves $22,000 and we'll see what happens.
And do you feel like that kind of experience is kind of necessary to be a good entrepreneur at some level? I mean, there's always this kind of struggle story. And I think in a lot of entrepreneurs, like, what do you think it's necessary? What do you learn from that? Like, what does it do for you to then get you to the next phase?
I think struggle's a natural part. In fact, actually, I will tell you that I think pain is a natural part. I think most pain is what drives most growth.
Yeah.
That's a better way to put it. It doesn't matter if you are the caterpillar that you're going to dissolve yourself down to just a few cells to become the butterfly, or you have these situations where the pain is injected by you, by a choice that you're making, because the pain of the status quo is
Yeah.
no longer acceptable. And a little bit on that, I didn't want to take that job full time. I was scared to take Contegix full time.
Hmm.
Greg had been laid off after the company we were working at was acquired.
Yeah.
I still had a job. I didn't want to take it full time, but I was tossing and turning. And my wife, who, by the way, not only us having a baby, she's also pregnant again.
Jeez. Yeah.
And she just looks at me one night and says, "What's going on?" I said, "I think I
Uh-huh.
want to do this, but I'm afraid," and all this stuff. And she just says, "You do not get to tell our daughter and your son to be born to follow their dreams if you don't follow yours. It just makes you a hypocrite or a liar."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, the pain of that idea and the pain of, oh my gosh, I just went through all the crap that my parents went through that I was trying to avoid in my life.
Mhm.
Okay, the pain of the status quo is no longer acceptable. So
Yeah.
making $22,000 a year, maxing out credit cards, taking a home equity loan to buy groceries at some point
Mhm.
seemed a lot less painful because I could take charge of that. I
Yeah.
could control that destiny more than I could in any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. That autonomy is huge. You can tolerate a lot when you have that. Is
Yeah.
this where we talk about you being an ultra marathoner as well?
At any point you want to.
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I do think this whole kind of how to use pain intentionally and strategically to drive change is just a fascinating concept. I'm similar. I've done all these kind of crazy Ironman and did these Himalayan mountain climbs and things like that. But I think it's a similar kind of thinking around, like in that discomfort is an opportunity to find an edge and find where you have a weakness and then figure out how to work on that weakness to build strength. Like there's some dynamic there. I guess, do you see it like the marathoning and stuff? Is this all part of the same core, or like how do you relate kind of the work that you do as an entrepreneur to the ultra endurance stuff? Where is that similar for you?
I do think they are similar. I think it's especially similar when I look at it and think anytime I've done 100-miler, I can't do that alone. I actually need people there. And there's a team. It's
Mhm.
not employees. That's actually what we all want actually in our companies, in our organizations. We don't want employees. We want teammates. Even when we're, hierarchically, the
Mhm.
one that can make the choices, make the decisions, we still want a team. All those people that show up for these ultra marathons that I've done have shown up under their own accord. I might provide some housing, I might provide some food, but they're flying to Leadville, Colorado to show
Mhm.
up to help me. So it's
Mhm.
a team. Second thing is we're all aligned for a single goal. So
Yeah.
I've been both the runner and the
Mhm.
crew pacer. And the one thing that you're there to do is no matter what, you're to get your runner to the next step.
Mhm.
Your entire single goal is to get them across the finish line. Your sacrifices are for that endeavor.
Yeah.
And the third is it does take an amount of pain to actually go through and do this and push your limits and test it
Mhm.
and figure out where you may or may not break. And I've broken in these 100-milers. I've broken coming out of the 100-milers.
Mhm.
At one point I, tore my right hip labrum 9 miles into something, 9 miles into a 103-mile run, then tore my left calf at 48 miles and pushed to 103.
Oh, geez. I cringe just thinking about it.
Yeah. I was like Derek Zoolander for a month. I could only turn in one direction.
Everything's right turns for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so let's go back to the business. And like so when you founded things, so it sounds like it was a little bit of decision point, or you really kind of had to push this. Okay, look, I'm going to do this. Like, I need to follow this. This is an opportunity, but I'm uncomfortable. There's some risks here. When did it go from feeling like something you really needed to kind of push through to where you felt like you actually had some momentum and you're like, okay, this is going to go somewhere. We have some opportunity here. What happened? How long did that take?
It took about 5.5 months,
Okay.
believe it or not, which feels, in retrospect, feels very, very fast. And
Yeah.
what had happened is this is back 20 something years ago. You didn't have cloud computing the way you
Yeah.
do now. We had signed this customer up and the customer had paid 2 years in advance. So
Okay.
I now have this check for $43,000,
Wow.
41 or
Nice. Yeah.
$43,000. And I'm thinking, man, I've made it. Like
Jackpot.
I've made it. My business partner's like, we have made it. Like, well, here's basically two more, two more man years of salary.
Uh-huh.
So we're gonna have to stick this out at least another year.
Uh-huh.
And the funniest part of this story is that we go to the bank together, like little kids with this check. And we walk in the bank, and I don't know if we were expecting like balloons and streamers to fall down on us. And so we go to the teller and, go to deposit a check, and she just looks at us like, okay, like this is creepy. These two idiots are just holding a check, depositing it, smiling. And, and so we're staring at the receipt, the deposit receipt, and we're like, oh my gosh, like this is a real deal. Like we're gonna have to do this. And we walk out of the bank, and I kid you not, Bruce, this is not an exaggeration because we have this, we have all the evidence of this still. I looked down on the ground outside the bank, and I was like, oh my gosh, they must have given us two deposit slips. There's one on the ground. And I reach down and pick up the deposit slip on the ground, and that deposit slip is for just under $200,000. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, we got some work to do. I mean, this guy discarded a $200,000 deposit slip, and Craig and I are like idiots holding this $42,000 one. It's like that was deflating, but we kind of knew that we were onto something
Yeah.
then. And then the next big thing was we had signed a contract about a year and a half later with United Airlines,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and we were running their travel club systems in our data center. And that was, oh my gosh, like we really have to do that.
Yeah.
And Bruce, I remember signing that contract and going out with buddies, and they were like, oh my gosh, you made it. You signed this big customer. This is a top tier customer. And they're like, gosh, let's do it. You should probably buy dinner tonight. And
Of
all I
course.
kept remember thinking is, oh my, I have millions of dollars of liabilities on my shoulder now. Like I have to make this work.
Yep. It is the flip side of this, signing these big contracts, is that you got to deliver. I'm kind of curious as things kind of grew, at what point did you figure, or did the whole idea of what do I do with this start to come into mind? Like, so you've got some traction, you got to pick up some of these clients. At what point did you start thinking about like, where's this going to go? Like, what am I going to do this for the next 50 years? Like, when does some thinking of the end of this, or what is the life cycle of this? When did that occur to you?
Craig and I, my business partner and I, thought we would get to about $1 million in revenue and just sell it and move
Yeah.
on or do something. And we blew past that within like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on a massive run rate. We were growing, 400-500%, every year. At some point we were growing 200% a month. I mean, it was just nonstop.
Yeah.
I got exposed to the Entrepreneurs Organization and exposed to YPO.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me to a point of, oh my gosh, maybe there's something bigger here.
Mm-hmm.
It also meant, maybe this is drawing a through line to the pain conversation, Craig and I were going to have to change.
Mm-hmm.
I learned years later that organizations only grow to the size of their leader. And it doesn't matter if it's a 5-person team or if it's a 5,000-person company, they only grow to the size of their leader. And Contegix at the time was bigger than Craig and me.
Yeah.
And so thankfully I got exposed to EO. I got exposed to their accelerator program and had heard the first time of the idea of working on the business, not just in it.
Yeah.
And I had examples, and I had mentors, and I had accountability people. And some of those people I still call. There's one person I call every April on the anniversary, and I've done it now for almost 20 years, when she gave me some of the harshest advice and then offered to help.
Yeah.
And I would not be here if it wasn't for her and for a few half dozen others.
Yeah.
But that showed me that this could be bigger. And the part of it wasn't just the top line, and it wasn't the bottom line. It was this concept that we could actually impact people's lives.
Yeah.
Our teammates, I mean, we inevitably ended up adopting a core value called rapid accelerated growth. And everybody thought
Yeah.
from the outside world it was about top line or bottom line. And it never was. It was about the rapid accelerated growth of our talent. And that's what we called our folks. We called them
Hmm.
talent. We called them teammates. We didn't want to
Yeah.
call them employees.
Yeah.
But that was the top of that core value.
Yeah. Yeah. How, I guess tell us a little bit of the story of the growth and when kind of exiting it became more of a real, like something you started planning or became more of something really kind of in the runway or in your roadmap for where the business was going to go.
So we unfortunately entered into a dispute with our minority shareholders
Okay.
in 2012. And that put us on a path where while we resolved that legal dispute between us and there was lawsuits and counter lawsuits,
Yeah.
one of the things it did do, and it's unfortunate because the minority shareholders will never actually know this, and this is actually kind of one of those things that like really does actually bother me that they'll never know this.
Oh.
That lawsuit spurred our growth. And I
Mm.
don't just mean of the top line and bottom line, it spurred growth of me
Yeah.
because I had hired some extremely smart, successful, bigger than Contegix talent,
Hmm.
and I wasn't letting them do their job.
Yeah.
And the lawsuit became, what is the one problem that I can actually tackle and solve that nobody else in the company could? And that was a lawsuit, which meant I had to let go of the reins
Mm.
and let Tom really go run marketing and let Mike really truly be our CFO.
Yeah.
And that spurred so much growth in me. And actually, we continued to grow through the lawsuit, which is kind of not common. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say it's unheard of, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not common when you've got a shareholder lawsuit. You know, you're risking all this stuff. So that actually then, after we resolved that lawsuit, the lawsuits, it became this is no longer tenable.
Yeah.
This relationship, we will hit a cap. And it really did feel that way.
Yeah.
And so we started doing all the stuff that we now that I kind of do professionally now and help with our clients.
Yeah.
But it took years and years and years because that lawsuit was in 2012 and our first exit to private equity was in 2016.
Yeah. So that's 4 years of working through those things.
4 years of grinding, 4
Yeah.
years of grinding and still trying to grow. I mean, you know, you're adding on to the boat while you're putting more passengers on and you're trying to figure out what the destination is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
I always say that you haven't really been successful in business till you've been sued. So, like, these kind of lawsuit things that come up in just about every conversation I have around this. I had ones as well, right? Like, it's certainly it helps you kind of focus and helps you kind of realize, okay, where are your strengths and weaknesses? Where are your risks? What do you really need to do to create value across the chain? And so through this growth process, you step enabled some of these other leaders to really kind of step into their leadership and kind of grow, and that really kind of scaled the company. So tell me a little bit about the acquisition, because you were doing some acquisitions as part of that process. Why do acquisitions? What was it that really kind of drove that big learnings around being kind of the acquirer?
so we had started that process of acquiring, really of looking and acquiring other customers.
Mm-hmm.
In order to build a bigger platform. We knew we had to get past some of the barriers on there.
Yeah.
And it was going to be something where my business partner and I were going to have to personally take on and merge-ish into Contegix
Mm-hmm.
because of our minority shareholders just saying, listen, we're kind of done.
Yeah.
I mean, once that trust was broken, it was really hard
Yeah.
for both parties, for all of us.
I'm
I
sure.
mean, a lot of that has honestly been repaired
Okay.
over the past few years, but it at the time was very, very, very harsh.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So we knew that we had gaps in what we were trying to take to the market and our customers. I mean, when I go talk to my alma mater or I go talk to, people that want to be entrepreneurs, they'll always ask the question, well, how do you get to be an entrepreneur? And my answer is write down problems. Just write down problems. Every day, write down 5 problems. And then after like a month or 3 months, like go back and see where you got similarities and say, okay, well, nobody solved this in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should probably solve it. Well, we were hearing stuff like that from our customers.
Yeah.
And we kept hearing that over and over and over again. So we began the process of, hey, how do we actually bring in these other companies with us? And that rolled up into our private equity, one big transaction where we effectively merged 3 companies into Contegix,
Got it.
and that then became the bundle. It was funny because, you go back and you look at the articles, and anybody that's done a deal knows how timelines really truly work.
Yeah.
And anybody that's not done a deal is like, wow, you guys hired a new CEO and he took over, and like a week and a half later he acquired a company. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how it happened. It's exactly how it happened. I mean, just like in the movies. I mean,
Yeah,
they were
exactly.
probably at a restaurant and did a handshake deal.
Hmm.
I mean,
The reality, the truth, and then
yeah.
yeah. What, I guess, what did you learn about that? Like, as you're doing these acquisitions, like what was the kind of the skill or the experience you were gathering around business as you started to do the acquisitions?
It was the biggest part was, how do you actually acquire and have similar cultures or not so dissimilar that they end up fighting?
Hmm.
That mattered more than anything else that we did. The other part is, when you're dealing with entrepreneurs, myself included at one point, when you're dealing with these CEO founders,
Yeah.
it's impressive how much we can wind our identity into 3 little letters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a very harsh thing, because now you're not buying somebody's company, you're buying a piece of their identity and possible soul.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a limb.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a major organ, depending on how tied up they are.
I mean, so that was those were 2 of the biggest lessons, was the culture and just the identity of that person.
Yeah.
We also had hired a new CEO to run Contegix
Hmm.
after the private equity transaction,
Hmm.
and we didn't hit the mark on it. I mean, great guy,
Yeah.
has gone on to be successful. We missed the mark on it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not a critique of him. It's not a critique of Contegix. It's not a critique of the companies we acquired. It is a critique of the bad match, and we should have done better.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
I
hard.
say this whenever I'm hiring to anybody,
Yeah.
hiring, or whether I'm, helping my daughter as she's interviewing for jobs and stuff, you have to figure out if it's the right match.
Yeah.
And while it's not as selective as my marriage,
Hmm.
I'm a really good husband to Courtney. I would be a poor husband to 3 billion other women.
Hmm.
It doesn't make me a bad husband. It makes
Yeah.
it a bad match.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
My wife's a better person. She'd be fine with. She'd be a great wife for lots of people.
Yeah. No, yeah, it is. It's that match thing is so interesting because I have seen, very successful executives in one company go to another company and really struggle, right? And the context that they're operating in changes and their performance suffers greatly. And I think it's just very underappreciated how context will drive performance. And if you put
Mhm.
the right person in the wrong context, they're not gonna succeed. Um, so what drove your exit? Like, as so you're doing these deals, you're rolling things up. Like, at what point did you decide, like, hey, look, I personally want to get out of this, or business wide need to get out of this, or the business needs to move on. I need to find something else to do. Like, what was that transition like? What drove that?
We had hit the limit with our shareholder structure, our cap table.
Hmm.
That's really the big thing that drove it. We also saw the market changing. We knew that we needed a strategic injection of capital for
Hmm.
the first time, really truly for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Our minority shareholders got in for hundreds of dollars, just to be
Yeah.
clear. Young and Dom, and they provided some expertise.
Hmm.
But we were going to need our first real injection of capital, especially if we wanted to continue answer our customers, which was ingrained in our core value, wow the customer every time, every engagement with integrity and 0 exceptions. And we were going to limit the rapid accelerated growth of our talent, and all of our stakeholders,
Yeah.
which does mean our people, our talent, our vendors, our shareholders eventually, but they were way down on the list of rapid accelerated growth. So we knew that we were coming to that end, and the dynamics of the market were changing so fast. I mean, you hear this all the time. There's really 3 things in the world that actually are resources: time, talent, and treasure. We needed treasure in order to buy more time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we did not have that capability.
Yeah.
And we got lucky in some ways. I mean, we had developed a relationship with the folks at Stratum Capital.
Hmm.
I think we talked to Bob Morse, who's one of the managing partners and founders over there. I think we talked to Bob when he may have still been at Oak Hill.
Okay.
And so when
Yeah.
Bob Morse and Adrian Pollock spun off to go do Stratum, we kept our conversations going. And right time, they called us. And I think I told Adrian in a very semi-professional way, I would love to talk to you, but you guys can't understand what we're doing, so go away. And he was thankfully relentless.
Yeah.
And eventually he said, well, we're gonna be in St. Louis in a couple of weeks to talk more about this. I was like, well, I guess so. Um, and frankly, they have been a great partner. And
Yeah.
they've consistently been a great partner. And we've been on this path with them for now 8.5, 9 years.
Yeah.
We had our final exit late in 2024. But they have been a great partner, and it's been a great relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess what has it meant for you personally, like in terms of shifts you had to make, growth you've had to make? Like how have things changed as as you've gone through this process and made these transitions with the business?
I think one of the biggest things was early on, after I stepped away as CEO, after we had done the private equity transaction and I stepped to our board, I joined a board that had a whole bunch of Stanford MBAs on it. I mean, very smart people, like
Mm-hmm.
extremely smart people. And I almost went and said, well, I'm going to go get my MBA from Stanford. I almost moved 2 of my 3 children to
Oh,
California.
geez.
I mean, Bruce, I'm filling out applications. I'm on the phone with Stanford. They're like, so here's how much it's going to be. You're going to do this executive MBA program, the Sloan Fellow program. You're going to live on campus. And I'm like, my 2 teenage boys are going to love it. They're going to live on a college campus. My wife is looking at me like I'm crazy. My daughter, who had
Oh
just
my
started
God.
in new high school, is looking at me like I'm crazy.
Oh my Lord.
And thankfully, I had somebody get me connected to somebody else who had a similar path.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I felt the same way after I sold my tech company and I was on the board and there was all these people with MBAs. I did the MIT MBA program. And he gave me 2 pieces of advice that were based upon his experience. And he said, one, let me guess, you're in that boardroom, and whenever there's a tech question, when everybody gets done talking and the executives leave, you basically get asked, is that bullshit what they just said, or is that real? And I was like, that's true. And he said to me something else. Here's what you need to understand. All those folks that are those MBAs that have never done a startup, never founded a company, they know how to turn $1 into $5 because they can do multiplication, but they cannot figure out how you went from 0 to 1 because every time they multiply 0, they get 0.
Yeah.
And he said, that's your role. He goes, you got enough damn MBAs. We don't need another MBA. And so that was my first lesson, that I needed to learn where was the role that I was going to serve inside of here. The second one is I had to learn, and I tested this when I went and did other endeavors afterwards, how much of this is going to be luck and how much of it I was good. And so I took on a role a year after I sold of being a conservator trustee of somebody else's company where the owners were suing each other. And the courts put in a conservator trustee.
Oh, that's amazing.
And the company was in a very awkward, stressed situation. And every measurement that you can put it, from finances, from culture, from every single thing. And so I got put in, donated all the money they paid me to charity. So I removed my conflict of interest. And it was a way for me to test to see how good was I. Yes, I 100% believe there was luck. I also wanted to find out how good I was.
That's amazing. And how good are you?
We grew cash flow by 320%. We resolved most of the lawsuits that were outstanding at the time. Employees got benefits for the first time ever. I did end up canceling cable TV, which one of the people in the office was stressed about because they couldn't watch their stories anymore. I also mandated you have to wear shoes or at least socks in the office. And, I also got to help the 2 shareholders because they said to me, they would ask me, okay, so how does this end? And I go, so I've been in a shareholder lawsuit. I'm just giving you my experience. My experience is that I wanted to have control over the future and not have somebody else determine it.
Yeah.
So you'll inevitably end up talking if you feel the same way.
Yeah.
And they ended up talking, and one bought the other one out.
Yeah. Yeah. Resolved.
Yeah.
Oh. So let's talk about today. So I guess, what is life like? Tell me a little bit about, you have this exit, you have this business experience. What do you focus on? What's important? What are you doing today now that you're on the other side of the business transaction?
Yeah. So you're hinting at it.
Yeah.
In late 2024, we sold all of Contegix to a company out of Paris, France. So on a Friday morning, knowing the transaction was going through, to be clear, my phone beeps and your resignation has been accepted as a board member and your transaction is complete. Thank you for your service. Have a nice day. And it was freeing. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
just say emotionally, there was kind of this thing of this was a weight being lifted off of me. And at the same time, I would feel like I was kind of almost using it like a security blanket. Like it always had this success.
Yeah.
I was Matthew Porter, the guy that founded Contegix. It's still around. And now I'm Matthew Porter, who founded a company that will probably disappear in name, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I'm not at the company.
Yeah.
The interesting part to what we're doing today and what I'm doing today is there's two other friends of mine that are YPO members here in St. Louis, so Young Presidents Organization members here in St. Louis. We both had exits around the same time. I'm the only one that's gotten a second bite at the apple so far. The other two are still on their path. And the three of us would get these calls from people, some of them friends, some of them YPO members, some of them EO members that we've known for years, some of them, hey, I saw you at a Starbucks in 2013. Can we grab coffee? And when they got those calls, it was about, hey, tell me how you sold your company. Tell me about the process. Tell me what you did to get prepared. Half of my calls were like that. And half of my calls were because I had multiple sclerosis. I'm very public about this. I end up coaching, mentoring people that have been diagnosed with MS. So those two guys who are now my business partners, Aaron Stone and Ross Toohey, we would get together and we'd say, hey, did you hear from Bob? Yeah, I heard from Bob. Did you hear from Jane? Yeah, I heard from Jane. What do you think? What do you think? All these people that were reaching out to the three of us. And finally, we just like, okay, we keep hearing this problem. The market is speaking. What if we built an advisory firm that does all the stuff that a private equity really, truly wants to do? When they buy a company, or the investment banker wants to do when they represent you, but they don't have the time. The investment banker doesn't have the time because they've got 6 months, maybe 12. Exactly. You can't make fundamental changes in a company that fast, or you'll wreck it and possibly, decrease value of it. So what if we do this and we take all that pain and experience that we have and help others? And so today, that is what we do. We come in, we start with an evaluation of your company, and it's not just, hey, here's a dollar it's worth. Here's where best in class is. Here's where your challenges are. And we break it down for you. And we say, here's where you are. And we'll spend 8 to 12 weeks working with you on that. And then at that point, we kind of figure out if you like us and we like you, can we really work together? And then we may decide together to start a multi-year process where we really help kind of strengthen and scale and help the business thrive. And whether that means in 3 to 5 years they sell, or they realize, the house doesn't have to be on fire. I don't have to have the house on fire, and I really probably shouldn't be walking around with gasoline and matches while it's on fire. So I just want to keep running it.
Yeah.
So that's what we do today. And the company's called EONOVA, and it really stems from this Latin. We reversed the 2 Latin words for new era. And we
got it.
We built this company, and it does something different. It does. I mean, everybody that's exited at some point has hired people that were probably bigger than they were, or bigger than the company. And so that was the pain, that was the cost, and they help you get to where you need to be. Well, that's kind of what we're doing, but as an outside advisory firm.
Yeah. Fascinating. You mentioned the MS. I mean, I'm curious how that's framed. I'm curious, when did that present, right? When did that kind of come into your life? And then how has that shaped some of your decision making or prioritization? Right? I've worked with a few folks that have had, medical, conditions, things like that. That it's interesting to see how it frames how they approach some of these things. How did it shape you? I'm curious.
So it made me more capable of asking people for help,
Hmm.
which I think is honestly, and I've preached to my children, asking for help is a superpower. Figure out how to use it. It's much easier in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the big thing it did is I feel the weight of time in a way
Yeah.
that I didn't before. I mean, the person who's diagnosed with MS, you are going to lose 10 to 15 years of your life and another around 7 to 12 quality years. If you make it 5 years without a relapse, those numbers kind of get cut in half. This is on, actuary table
Yeah.
statistics. And that's irrespective of gender, what age you were diagnosed, how many lesions you have on your brain and spine. So I feel the weight of time
Yeah.
in a different way than I did before. And that forces me to treat it as what it actually is, and that is a non-replenishable resource. And I did that before, but not to this level.
Hmm.
The interesting part is that fast forwarding to us doing EONOVA, as we're looking through what does the market actually say?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the market is it'll tell you that 50% of exits are involuntary.
Okay.
They are forced to do it.
Yeah.
And it's these things that are oftentimes referred to as the 5 Ds.
Hmm.
And it's death, it's divorce, it's disagreement, it's distress, and it's disability.
Hmm.
And while I am not today, by all indications, you would never think of me as disabled.
Yeah.
Technically, legally, I am disabled by having MS.
Yeah.
I still run 100-mile ultra
Yeah. Exactly.
marathons nonstop. Um,
Oh, the contrast. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the contrast, somebody asked me like, is your health deteriorating the other day? And I was like, well, in all fairness, I mean, like I was pushing hard and I usually I can get 75 pull-ups done, but I've moved it to the end of my workout and I really tanked out at 72. So I guess technically it is. And I know that sounds braggadocious, but
Yeah.
whatever, I'm disabled.
Yeah.
So it's funny that, here I am trying to help people and
Mhm.
I got hit by one of the Ds. It
Yeah.
did not force me to exit. It didn't
Hmm.
force me to exit in 2016. Didn't
Yeah.
force the sale of Contegix last year in 2024. What it does do, though, is it gives me empathy
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about entrepreneurs and CEOs and their identities are tied up into the title and all that crap, maybe maybe this is a little bit of pain that I can stop others from having.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that kind of the message? I mean, I'm just kind of thinking, for people that are earlier in this process and in a little bit of that struggle phase and kind of figuring out how to navigate some of these things, what kind of guidance or frame or, heuristic would you give them to help them kind of stay focused or make better decisions? Or what do you think is what people need at that earlier stage?
I think one of the biggest rules that I've heard, and I don't see it talked about enough, and I've heard it referred to as the laws of ones and threes or the rule of 3 and 10.
Okay.
And that is when you're growing an organization, and it could be a business, it could be the charity group that you
Hmm.
run, it could be a Bible study group that you run. Things change when a number starts with a 1 or 3, and you need to be prepared for the follow-up number. So at 1 million,
Hmm.
you look drastically different than 300,000 of annual revenue.
Hmm.
And at 1 million, you should start preparing for 3 million. And at 3 million, 10, and 10, 30, and 30, 100. And the same thing goes with folks. Three
Yeah.
people in an organization is drastically different than 10, which is drastically different than 30. And somebody that's run an organization will tell you somewhere past a little past 30, we started not knowing who everybody was.
Yeah.
And you have to build the system and the policy and the process and the procedure and the structure around it. If you do that, that makes it easier to getting on the path of saying, hey, what if I exited in 3 years? Even if you don't want to,
Yeah.
it's a 3-year process.
Hmm.
Prepare now to do it. And if you're worried about, well, what's a message I'm sending my team? Let me assure you, I heard this afterwards. Your team, if you are the sole owner of an organization, is actually nervous
Hmm.
about it. They are nervous about if something happens to you, is their livelihood impacted? They're not going to tell you. the reality is that even in the back of their minds, even if they're not even saying it to themselves, they are nervous about it.
Mm-hmm.
So putting you on a path to potentially exit is actually putting you on a path to scale and build a thriving business. So heaven forbid something horrible happens.
Yeah.
It's not your spouse stepping in and being like, well, I'm going to run this
I'll take the wheel.
organization now.
Yeah. I've never
I
driven
mean,
before.
my wife is amazing. She's a medical oncologist. She's a nurse practitioner with medical oncology. She's curing cancer every day.
Mm-hmm.
I just made flashy blinky lights flash and blink.
Mm-hmm.
She's a better human being who probably has a better job than I have ever had in terms of impact on people. She should never have run Contegix, and she would say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Matthew, this has been a pleasure. There's so much more we could go on for this, but we're going to hit time here. If people want to learn more about you, find out more about what you're doing, get more information about things, what's the best way to get that information?
So the easiest way is, I'll give you two websites, easy. One is my last name is Porter. We have porterhome.com, porterhome.com. I've talked a lot to other people about, our family having a mission statement, vision, values, just like an organization does. And yes, we do have those. And yes, they're plastered all over our house, just like an organization would. My 3 adult children all know them. But for what we're doing at EONOVA, it is eonova.co, EONOVA.co. And we'll tell you in 15 minutes what we think your business is probably valued at in the marketplace, maybe give you some indications on what you might want to fix. And you don't have to hire us. Just don't exit blindly. That's like taking the exit ramp with your eyes closed. You might make it, but I don't think I'd look at the bumper and the guardrails. So
yeah, exactly. It could be a nasty ride. Matthew, it's been a pleasure. I'll make sure all that information is in the show notes. People can get that. Thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for what you're doing for everybody. Thanks for doing this. And thanks for you spreading all this information that you're getting from all these people on your podcast.
My pleasure.